Today on KaaTruths Podcast, we sit with a man whose journey reads like a revolution. His name is Olajide Abiola, a military veteran who've turned into an empire builder.
One of the most important factor of business structuring is actually having an accountability partner. Now, a lot of startup entrepreneurs in Nigeria are fundraising hunters, and expectedly so. They are constantly looking for money. But one of the things they should have at the back of their mind, cheap capital is not as readily available in Nigeria as you have it in Silicon Valley. Many of them usually have their heads up in the sky, particularly in the ideation stage, and always go about with very unrealistic valuation of their ideas. Some even attribute galactic valuation to their startups when they do not even have an MVP. They don't even have a sketch. They just believe that their ideas is the next best thing after Agege brain.
With over 15 years of experience across hospitality, manufacturing, real estate, finance, and trade, he has built some of Nigeria's most innovative ventures, including the renowned Gidanka and Jendo. He is the CEO of multi-billion-naira group, a master of systems, and a pioneer of ideas, from digitalized lending to solar-powered hospitality, from groundnut oil production to strategic export. But beyond the boardroom and brands, he's a voice, bold, unafraid, a thought leader who speaks uncomfortable truth and inspires a generation.
I was one of those who identified with the citizens. I'm a former military person myself, and while I served in the military, there are a number of civil military interventions which we did. I was one of the first responder teams to the Ikeja bomb blast that happened over 2 decades ago at Ikeja in Lagos. I was also on a TV to lend my voice to the EndSARS movement, particularly with regards to demanding for the reforms and overhaul of the SARS unit, making it more humane, eschewing violence, abuse of power, exacting physical violence on hapless citizens, violating their fundamental human rights. However, I was against the protest also violating the rights of others, going beyond the exercise of their own rights. And as for me, I haven't served in the military and haven't fired live ammunition and haven't been part of battle simulations and operations. A massacre did not occur at Lekki. There are no evidences to support such claims.
In this episode, we dive deep into religion, politics, power, wealth, and the cost of building in a broken system.
Religion is not meant to serve material prosperity or economic prosperity. No, it's meant to develop and form spiritual character that finds expression in the quality of lives that people lead in terms of behavior, habits, honesty, discipline, and all of such positive and noble attributes that create that leads to a more developed and responsible individual that can add meaningful value to society.
This isn't just a conversation, it's a masterclass. Welcome to KaaTruths Podcast, and welcome Olajide Abiola. You're welcome once again, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. So I'm sure you're a very busy person. I know how long it took us to be able to drag you down here. So I'm not going to waste much of your time. And the first question, this morning I was going through Facebook, and then I of course I read your posts regularly. I saw one of the posts you made 7 hours ago about relationships. So I'm going to just read it out for our audience to be able to follow through, and then I'll ask you my question from it. So he says, no one was born with the network of powerful, influential, valuable relationships that you either admire or love to hate. They had to forge, build, and nurture the relationships. Even children born into wealthy, rich, and powerful families or to such parents don't just inherit those relationships. The relationship that perpetuates and sustains any inherited power, wealth, influence, and so on has to be intentionally nurtured. What have many done with social media, particularly those who consider themselves disadvantaged and less privileged? 99% have used it to cultivate enemies with strangers they do not know and do not wish to know. Compare it to how successful, happy, and thriving people use it. If I'm to place a value on the relationship I have cultivated on Facebook alone in the last 10 years, it exceeds 12 billion naira in monetary terms and alone, in monetary terms alone. And I kid you not, in intangible value terms, I cannot even quantify it. Solid friendship and relationships, professional relationship, valuable human assets, and these are not relationships from offline or schools, just pure relationship forged through Facebook alone. And it is not that you need connections or you need to have been born with a silver spoon to forge and nurture relationship with meaningful and valuable people on social media. No one inherited their parents' relationships of power, wealth, and influence on social media. People built and nurtured them, nurtured them through their intellect, character, manners, ideals, values, and attitude. The only gain so many have derived from social media is their membership of gangs, toxic gossip and troll communities, bully cliques, and so on. While they bemoan those who use it to learn, unlearn, broaden their worldviews, and forget meaningful relationships and forge meaningful relationships. It is my hope that you choose sensibility over stupidity one day. It's a long one, but this is making it like the third time I'm reading it because I'm very intentional about relationships.
Mhm.
But in a world, in a society like we have it today, where young people like me have this popular saying that who go help you, no go stress you. You tell them do this, do that. They just want you to give them everything on a platter of gold. They feel so entitled to connections, relationship, help, and all of that. So my question to you regarding this is, what do you think the youth can do better? What exactly is the reason why we have so many young people who have this kind of mentality? And what do you think we can do better to further forge good and meaningful relationships?
First and foremost, it begins with taking personal responsibilities. And if you've been unfortunate enough to have been poorly parented and you lack some of these ideals and values and upbringing, it behoves on you once you attain a specific age to sit down and introspect and take a critical assessment, self assessment,
Mm,
and look at the areas of your personal deficiencies. Because there's always an expiry date for blaming your parents, your community, your societies, your uncles, your kings, your family. So it all boils down to having a high sense of personal responsibility at the end of the day. Because you are partially a reflection of what you see in the world. Most of the times, people are looking for who they are not. And that ends up creating a relational imbalance or a functional imbalance. When, for instance, you are a dishonest person and you're actually looking for somebody who is honest. If you find somebody who is honest, at the end of the day, your dishonesty is actually going to create friction and turbulence in any form of relationship you are going to have. It could be employer-employee relationship. It could be professional relationship. It could be romantic relationship. Regardless of the relationship it is. So you should be a reflection of that which you are looking for in the world, because the law of attraction is very real. You most times attract who you are, not what you want, not what you desire. And the law of attraction is very, very strong. So you end up magnetizing who you are. And social media today is just a platform that facilitates communication, contact, interaction, and relationship building. And it mirrors what happens in real life. The fact is that you cannot actually hide behind the veil of virtuality to pretend
mm,
or to project a contrary or an opposite or a parallel persona to who you truly are. It's just a matter of time. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you'll be revealed, you'll be exposed for who you really are at the end of the day. So it's a reflection of who you are in real life. So
Thank you. Just a quick one to our audience. So, because of how important this session is, we've been able to um, specify this in just 6 sections. So, we are going to start from the first section, which is religion, truth, and influence, and then progress to power, elite, Nigerian game, politics, identity. We're going to be talking about a whole lot of things. So now I'm going to go into the religious questions we have, which of course I understand is one of the areas that have attracted most of the trolls you have in your page. Religion is a very sensitive issue where when we discuss it, people feel very emotional because of how emotionally attached they are to their beliefs, whether it is true or not. As long as you make mention of it, they come after you. But now that you're here, the first question I have in this section is: do you believe religion is helping or destroying African progress, especially in business and governance?
religion by itself
Hmm.
is not a tool of retrogression, nor is it evil, nor does it limit human potential. Religion across Africa generally has been adulterated
Hmm.
and abused. If you look at the history of organized religion as it is, it has actually been used to accomplish very noble causes, pursue education, charity, enlightenment, even promote science and technology. You know, the history of Christianity and Islam as it is, if you delve into the history of these two religions,
Hmm.
has actually been used to promote education, science, charity, development, researches at different levels. And it has also been used by unscrupulous and sordid men and women to actually also discourage, limit, retrogress, retard development in certain instances. So it's almost like a tool in the hands of somebody who is good and also in the hands of somebody who is bad, in the hands of somebody who is ignorant and in the hands of somebody who is enlightened. So typically, religion should actually lead to spiritual enlightenment where individuals can have deeper intimacy and developed spirituality at the end of the day. But what it has largely achieved across Africa, largely, not fully or wholly,
Hmm.
largely achieved, particularly in contemporary times, is serve as a tool in the hands of unscrupulous men to wreak havoc, manipulate, control, exploit, and as a means to gain influence and power on the negative side. On the positive side, we have actually had a whole lot of clergies on both the Islamic and the Christian side who have actually used religion to empower in terms of knowledge, to empower economically. But the primary objective of religion is to actually reconcile humanity with divinity, is to actually lead to enlightenment that actually creates spiritual maturity and spiritual enlightenment in people. Religion is not meant to serve material prosperity or economic prosperity. No, it's meant to develop and form spiritual character that finds expression in the quality of lives that people lead in terms of behavior, habits, attributes, honesty, discipline, and all of such positive and noble attributes that creates that leads to a more developed individual and responsible individual that can add meaningful value to society. So at the end of the day, religion is not about self-aggrandizement. It's not about naming it, claiming it. It's not about domination, political domination, or gaining political influence, which many of our clergies or people pretending to be clergies who have arrogated that title to themselves without actually satisfying or fulfilling the character demands of what it means to be a clergy as espoused in the holy books, whether it is the Bible or it is in the Quran. So when you look at, because how can you explain a situation where we have a population that is so high and so notable for religious exhibitionism? And on the one end, we also have a high level of distrust in the society that permeates whether it is our politics, the private sector, our economy, commerce, name it. So, on the one end, you have people who are very religious and who exhibit it every now and then. And then on the other end, you also have a society that is highly distrustful. The trust quotient of Nigeria is extremely low. So, how do you want to reconcile people who are very religious but who are so distrustful at the end of the day? So, I mean, we can talk about this. I mean, without end.
That is true. You know, we've seen in this country where a politician says that we should pray that the security of the country is only in the hands of God, that it can only be provided or guaranteed by God. We've also seen pastors who tell their members to come to church on Mondays, Tuesdays, work days to church to come and pray for breakthrough, financial breakthrough, business breakthroughs, and all of that. And people who are supposed to be at work are rather in church praying for money, miracle money, and all of that. We've also seen where people gathered around transformer, power transformer, damaged one, to pray that God should send Angel Michael to help them fix it. Now, all of these things I mentioned it because it reflects the mindset of the society and how, just like you mentioned, what we use religion for in this country. So I want you to talk on that aspect of the question. Do you think, let me put it this way, if you become a president of this country, what will you do to these prophets, pastors who are all over every street in the country, opening churches in every nooks and cranny of the country? People who, of course, we know that they are false, that are just doing it to deceive and extort money from people. I'm taking time to talk about this question because, of course, it's one of the most part of our society that interests me the most because it involves our mental well-being and reasoning. What do you think would be the right thing you would do if you become a president now? Would you allow them to continue, or would you say we want to regulate the practices and how all these things are done in our society to further, to stop further decay?
So the fact is, practically speaking, it's almost impossible for you to regulate religion. One of the things you can actually regulate is behavior, not the religion itself. A simple example is what Lagos is already proactively doing. If you constitute a noise nuisance under the guise of religion to your neighbor, the Ministry of Environment will come based on credible report or petition from those who have become victims of that noise pollution or that behavioral nuisance as a result of religion, will come and apply the necessary enforcement. So don't constitute, for instance, or be a noisy nuisance to your neighbor from where you are operating. 2, you cannot set up a church within a residential neighborhood. That is you also regulating behavior. You've not actually prevented their right to associate and to worship whichever God or identify with whichever faith of their own choosing and of their own volition. So once you institute order, automatically people will start modifying their behaviors to adhere to that order. Nigeria has never had a problem of enacting good policies or legislating on good laws and what have you. It is enforcing and applying them. It will surprise you that many states already have in theory or in their books some of the laws and some of the policies necessary to checkmate the excesses in terms of behavior, bad behaviors that are exhibited under the guise of religious practices. A simple example as well is government preventing churches and mosques as well from closing roads on their worship days. You see that happen, for instance, in Abuja. Christians do that on Sundays, Muslims do that on Fridays.
Yeah.
And you go to other countries that are actually more Christian and Islamic oriented than we are and do not indulge in such behaviors. And you even have some, they are Islamic republics, and they do not do that, whereby they constitute, they block the roads, or you go to Rome where you see Catholics during Mass or Mass, they block, vehicular movements because Mass is actually ongoing. It does not happen. So you cannot legislate on religion itself. You can only institute order through policies and legislation and back it up with aggressive enforcement. And people are going to actually, get in line. Once you do not give permit for people to build churches, for instance, in places that are designated as commercial areas or residential areas or industrial areas, you've not prevented people from gathering and worship as they desire, but you've actually prevented them from becoming nuisance to society. And that way, once you start checking all of that, you start instituting order to the way of life of people in society. And that's the way you build an organized, orderly, progressive society that is going to see development. There are certain developments that are not going to take place as a consequence of social disorderliness, which some of our adulterated religious practices contribute to inadvertently. So until that is done, some of these issues, we are going to continue to grapple with them.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've watched this video up to this point, I'd like to take this moment to introduce the destination hotel to you. At KaaTruths Podcast, we do not just promote anything if it is not beautiful and the best. And the destination hotel is the most beautiful hotel in Abuja. I assure you that. Talk about luxury, talk about affordability, talk about security. This hotel has all of it. This is one hotel that when you sleep on the bed hugs you back and whispers very sweet dreams to your ear. I like you to call the number on the screen, book a place for yourself and for your family and for your loved ones this weekend. Have a taste of what luxury feels like. And I assure you, you're not going to regret it. Whenever you're in Abuja, do not miss coming to the destination hotel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us get back to the main video. Thank you so much. It makes a whole lot of sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. Here in this studio, I've had issues of this nuisance. When we are coming, you see a worship center here. Because of the amount of noise I had to report them to the estate. And then we started going, but at the end of the day, they just had to reduce the noise a bit. And I know it was not just bothering me alone. There are other people, but I was the person who made effort to
Yes.
see if there's anything that can be done about it. I understand, and your answer is very clear and perfect. But then I want to ask, do you think it makes any sense for politicians like governors and the rest of our politicians to spend public fund to send the Christians and the Muslims to pilgrimage like Jerusalem and Saudi Arabia? They spend a whole lot of money, billions of naira, and then they also come back to mention this as one of their achievements. Do you think it makes any sense that we believe God is everywhere, and yet we're rushing, spending our money to other places in search of this God we believe is everywhere?
I think it's one of the indulgences of the political class, and governments that still spend on pilgrimages do so purely out of political consideration and not necessarily because they are fulfilling any religious injunction in the holy writs or in the holy books. You see, many of the things that drives doctrine across both Abrahamic religion in Nigeria is purely ignorance and politics and nothing else. If many people actually studied the Holy Writ for themselves, they will actually be enlightened enough not to be victims of the exploitation of unscrupulous and sordid people who are given the privilege of mounting the pulpit or religious platforms to mislead, to beguile, to deceive, and to incite and to manipulate and brainwash people negatively, not for any purposes of moral or nor religious edification, but for financial gains and nothing else, and for political currencies. So it is very wrong for government who are still indulging in that, because if you want to embark on any pilgrimage and for it to be accepted as an act of worship before God, it should actually be proceeds, one, of your own financial income, legitimate income. So you cannot be using state resources to sponsor an endeavor or a pilgrimage that serves purely spiritual purposes. Who does the reward go to at the end of the day? So I consider it as a complete funding that represents huge waste and unnecessary pressure on the common till of the respective states that actually still indulge in that. And like I said, uh, political indulgences of this act is just to gain political currency and nothing else. When you have government who are still sponsoring this, government is just mainly meant to regulate the processes involved in our people or our citizens who have the capacity and who have the desire and willingness to proceed on these pilgrimages to ensure that it is orderly and it is well regulated so that they do not fall into the hands of exploiters and fraudulent organizers of the pilgrimages. So it is very, very wrong. Countries that have attained social progress, economic development do not indulge in this kind of thing. And that's why even many of the beneficiaries actually do not really value it and even take it for granted. We've had a number of bandits, for instance, who have been arrested at our different airports who were just returning
From
from the
pilgrimage.
observation of pilgrimage. So you then question at the end of the day, and you know they actually were able to afford it as a result of the proceeds they got from many of their nefarious activities. So I would not, if I was in government, if I was a governor, I would not indulge such a thing under any circumstance. Will I sponsor, whether it is Christian, nor Muslim pilgrimage. I'll only ensure that the state has a very functional, competent, and effective pilgrimage board that would oversee the administrative and the management of those who are willing, private citizens who are willing, who are capable, and who are able to actually finance such endeavors. But I'll never sanction it nor commit state resource to such a thing. It's very wrong.
Thank you. Thank you. It's one of the things I find most absurd that it doesn't make sense to people like me. And thank you for that answer. It's a beautiful one. Now, the next question I want to ask is more like your advice to the KaaTruths podcast. So, on this platform, we've had a lot of people who come here to testify about false prophets, help expose a lot of false prophets. And some of the things is they've exposed about some of these prophets that have staged kidnap, fraud, staged miracles, and like one man, O.C. Benjamin in Ebonyi State, who staged a fake kidnap. He hired a lady with a daughter and someone else. They took this girl to a hotel, and the woman, the mother, ran to the church that her child has been kidnapped. And then the prophet declared from the church, they know that he's seen where they kept the girl and all of that. And then they went to a hotel, broke down the doors in the hotel. By then, the guy who also played his part as the kidnapper had abandoned the girl there and left her and all of that. Now, when they found the girl, later it became a problem. We were able to reach the hotel and they confirmed that it's true. The woman whom they used, the mother, confirmed that it's true, and a whole lot of other people. Now, so the atrocities of these people are just so much, and we've had people who come here to help expose these guys. But then a platform like ours, who do not just want to have a platform where we'll talk about these people, who also want to ensure that we take some legal actions. We write petition to police with all the proof we have, saying that look at this, and then they ask for a huge sum of money, amount of money, and I fund some of this from my personal pocket,
Yes.
just to make sure that the law takes its course. And then after spending a whole lot of money, running into millions, this same prophet will just go to the police and also probably give them their own money. At the end of the day, the police will call us. We should just settle this thing. It's a religious issue and all of that. We have had so many cases like that, and it happened. So at some point, I sit there and I begin to ask myself, does it mean that I'm just wasting my time? Shouldn't the platform like KaaTruths just move on, go, stop giving attention to some of these and let whosoever want to perish? So I want to ask, in your position, do you think we are wasting our time? The KaaTruths is wasting their time by paying attention to some of these atrocities and trying to help to sanitize the society of some of these false prophets or otherwise.
I think the primary responsibility of a platform as yours is to showcase and highlight what is the truth. You do not have any moral burden nor responsibility to impose the truth on anyone. Once you turn on the light, the truth, the darkness vanishes. The light does not have to contend with the darkness. And I think we give too much attention and even publicity to the false prophets over the right prophet or the true prophet. I mean, the very definition of a prophet in the Bible is very clear and simple and straightforward. And anybody who is knowledgeable and who pursues knowledge, as the Bible and the Holy Writ has actually exhorted. The Quran also exhorts that people should be diligent in their pursuit of knowledge. If they did that, they will be able to identify who a false cleric or who a false clergy is. without being told. So your responsibility is to present the truth with clarity. And anybody who rejects the truth is actually going to suffer the consequence. And one of such of the consequence is to become victims of these unscrupulous people, criminals who wear the toga of religion to perpetuate or perpetrate their crimes in order to be able to get away with it, considering the reverence that the populace generally gives to religion. Religion itself has become a victim, just like the police, because you've had a lot of criminals impersonate EFCC, impersonate DSS, impersonate police, impersonate different
Security agencies.
security agencies for the singular purposes of committing crimes. And it's the same way people use religion to perpetrate crime. And it does not mean that religion is complicit in this. But the responsibility of religious actors is to uphold the purity and the truth of their respective religions. Once you teach people, they will be able to exercise caution, discretion, apply knowledge, discernment, and discretion where it is applicable and where circumstances demand it. And where they reject the truth, it is clear in the Bible. The people will receive a great deal of delusion. So people who are exploited by false clergy, false pastors, are only experiencing consequences that are clearly outlined in the Bible. So, and you must not interrupt the consequences that have been clearly defined as the lot of those who are ignorant and those who reject the truth. That's not your responsibility. So give more airtime to those who speak the truth, to those who demonstrate the values, the ideals of Christ, and the tenets of Islam in the Bible as well. You give airtime to these people so that people can see the light. Attention is the fuel that powers those who hide or wear the toga of religion to commit these crimes, because they know the reverence that is given to these people, the unhealthy and undue reverence that is given to religion, and adulterated and false religion. It is our appetite and hunger for shortcuts, for the miraculous, that drives many of these. The Bible said, you err because you do not understand scriptures. So it means many of these ignorances, many of this gullibility, self-inflicted vulnerability are a function of ignorance.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And trust me, we're going to remodel our operational structure to ensure that we do that better. Because, I mean, it seems...
For every false prophet, there is also a genuine. So when people say false, this is a fake designer, this is a fake Puma, this is a fake Nike, it means there is genuine Nike. It means that they copied from. So if there is fake, the fake validates and authenticates the original. You cannot have a fake of something that is non-existent. You can only have fake currency because the currency exists. So a fake currency only tries to imitate an original, an authentic. So you cannot fake 5,000 naira note because an authentic 5,000 naira note does
Does
not
not
exist.
exist. That is true. That is true.
So the fake or counterfeit only exists because there is an authentic. Counterfeit is the opposite of authentic. So when people say, oh, I'm done, I'm angry with religion, I'm done with God, I tell them, how did God come into the equation? It is a man arrogating to himself wrongly or falsely or ignorantly arrogating to himself the divine anointing of being a prophet when he or she is not.
Mm.
And the consequences is that such words of the prophet will not come to pass and is not going to edify the hearer or the person who applies it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is the last question. It's a funny one
Yeah.
about this religion. If your son told you he wants to become a politician or a pastor, which of these two will scare you the most?
Well, both are roles of very high responsibilities.
Hmm.
For that of a pastor or a clergy, it's a high role of moral and spiritual responsibility. And that's why I also believe as a great deal that many of the moral rebirth, turnaround, changes, transformation that the people earnestly yearn for, cry for, can actually be championed from the pulpit. Because most of the things, most of the messages, the talks, the discussions, and the words that have gone out or proceeded from the pulpit to adulterate the message, the undiluted truth and word of God, have been championed by people pretending to be pastors, prophets, and evangelists who have actually compromised the ideals and the values of of the message at the end of the day. So the bar and the responsibility of being a clergy is extremely high. That of a politician is similar because you actually hold power and authority and also resources, public resources in trust for the people. So you have to steward it to their benefit. And it's very tricky because we live in a world today where both the politician and as well as the clergy actually cower to the whims and caprices of the people that they govern and the people that they shepherd. And that is why some of them actually deceive and as well mislead them. Because as a leader, you are to take the people to where they ought to go to, not where they want to go to. For the most part, when you interview people, when you do random sampling, for the most part, 9 or 8 out of 10 people do not know what they actually want. Because the moment they get it, they immediately become disillusioned. They want something else. Or they immediately realize that, oh, this is not what I actually want. So leadership or shepherdhood as a pastor, as a politician, is actually more like parenting. If you allow your children stampede you or guilt trip you by reason of their emotions, you are going to indulge them and you fail as a parent. You give them what will ruin them, you give them what will destroy them, and you will not be able to imbue them with knowledge, with discipline, with training that are necessary for their healthy edification and growth. So the position of a clergy and a politician are not for personal aggrandizement, whereby you know, amass or acquire trinkets of material excesses. There are high positions of moral, intellectual, and material responsibility, where you hold a whole lot of things in trust. As a politician, you hold the people's mandate to govern and to lead them in trust. That of the pastor to shepherd them, guide them, feed them, lead them, train them, rebuke them, teach them, empower them with knowledge, enlighten them. So these are high positions of trust, moral responsibility, material responsibilities, because you have to steward offerings, tithes, donations given to the church for the well-being of the church and the perpetuation of the word and the gospel, so that people can be properly edified and become wholesome individuals who can contribute meaningfully to society. And it's the same thing for that of a politician. So for me, if I was to choose, I would choose that of a politician in an executive role. And I've actually stated this multiple times. However, at the moment and in the past, I've never participated in partisan politics. And I do not intend to do so in the immediate or the foreseeable future. So I need to issue this disclaimer for the listeners or those watching me to understand that I'm presently not a card carrying member of any political party right now. And in the short and in the medium term, I do not intend to join partisan politics. But as a hobby, I actually contribute to political discussions and analysis. So if I was to choose, I'll choose I'll choose to become a politician because of my background in entrepreneurship. And I believe if I contest and I get the mandate of the people to serve in an executive position, because of my strong bias for action and particularly the ability to quickly ideate and transmute them into implementation and execution, I'll be able to bring a great deal of change quickly in the office of a politician. So above that of being a pastor. At the moment, as an entrepreneur, I believe I'm already carrying out the Lord's work by providing a lot of roles, jobs, and opportunities for people, first and foremost, to fulfill the first Adamic mandate, which is necessity to work, because that is the primary objective or purpose of work, necessity. Work gives a human being dignity, regardless of what you are earning. It gives you dignity that you wake up early in the morning, you have a place you can go and make a meaningful, productive contribution that solves problem or that meets a need, necessity. So,
Thank you
thank you.
so much. So we are moving on to the next section now, and
Yeah.
the first question on this section is about business.
Yep.
So you've built businesses across multiple industries. So I
Yep.
want to know: do you think Nigeria rewards competence or connection? We've seen a situation where two people are vying for a particular role, and then because one person knows who and who, he gets the role. And the person who is actually competent enough to do that particular job is not given the chance to do it because he or she doesn't know anybody. So, in business, do you think Nigeria rewards competence or connection?
Based on my personal experience, broadly speaking, I see Nigeria as a market, so I'm going to be using it interchangeably. The market and Nigeria actually does reward competence. It does reward merit, individual merit, private merit, and your ability to create value gets rewarded by the market and by the nation and by life itself, regardless of where you go to. in the world. Principles are generally universal. And I always tell people not to use minor incidences of corruption as you have it to judge the whole reality that defines Nigeria. So the market, and based on my own experience, I haven't served in the army, I haven't served briefly with government, and I haven't spent more time within the private sector. I would say that life, Nigeria, and the market does reward merit, competence above any other uh, consideration. Of course, as with Nigeria, and many people actually believe certain practices are peculiar to Nigeria, or Nigeria is the worst example of everything bad in the world. Nigeria is not the worst example of everything bad in the world.
Mm.
The problem is that many people have actually been indoctrinated before they even start to face life. They've been indoctrinated with a defeatist, negative mentality. And what a defeatist mentality does is that it is self sabotaging. So even before you make any attempt at anything, you've already concluded. You already have your verdict. This thing does not work. You already have negative narratives. You already have negative dogmatic beliefs in your mind that, for instance, all males are this way. All people from this state behave this way. So you no longer leave any room for attempt, for consideration, for review whatsoever. I'm a businessman today. Some of my companies are rated by some of the most reputed rating companies in the world. I'm able to access the capital markets, the same capital markets that the like of MTN, Nigerian breweries, multinational companies, Dangote, Bua. Name the brands, name the multinational companies. Some of the biggest companies in Nigeria go to raise private notes, to raise commercial papers, to raise bonds, and what have you. It was purely based on the performance of my company, the company structure, corporate governance, profitability, management, outlook, SWOT analysis, financial projection, financial performance, and all of these indices were used to determine suitability, capability, competence, and merit of my companies that enabled me to access the capital markets, approach bank. There was a time one of my company was the biggest beneficiary of a credit in the entire northern region of this country. And you had a whole lot of players within the sectors acting. Who do you know? I said, for crying out loud, this is a bank. It's purely based on your cash flow, your performance, your financial projections, the character and competence of the management, your corporate governance, and several other factors that qualifies you to access this credit. Nobody gave me any letter from anywhere to qualify purely on merit. The banks want to make money. They're a profit-making entity. If they do not give out money, there is no way they can make money. So if you've actually demonstrated capabilities and you've demonstrated character, you've demonstrated credibility over a certain period of time, they will give you. You know, I discuss these things casually in many of my articles. The companies have been able to build, many of even the noisemakers within the private sectors are not as big as it. So many people over the years, like under multiple regimes, he's positive because he's getting something from the Yaradua government. He's seeing the good side of the country because Jonathan has favored him. This building is working on. It's Patience Jonathan that owns it. It's Buhari. Buhari government has given him business of several business in contract. I've never bidded for any contract at the federal, state, or local government level. I've never been a beneficiary of any federal, state, or local government contract since I started my entrepreneurship journey. I've never. And this is why I always try to tell people that you can start. The problem, there's so much capital in the country, but there is high level of trust deficiency. There's abundance of capital, but there is low character to be able to access that capital. Many people have failed the character test. Many people have failed the capability test. There is character. There is capital. Abundance of capital in the country. But if you actually hear financial institutions tell you their stories, even some of the government interventions share some of the experiences that have informed the policy making of these institutions, you'll be shocked and you will not be able to blame them. Even though sometimes some of their policies have blanket effect that affect suitable, qualified, and capable people. Those who have actually abused the processes, gamed the system, and necessitated institutions, both government and private institutions, to modify their policies in order to protect themselves and insulate themselves from losses. You will actually bear and understand with them. However, in the midst of all of this, if you can demonstrate integrity, credibility, capacity, dependability, reliability, there is capital for growth. Abundance of capital. So I operate in the manufacturing sector. I operate in the hospitality sector. I operate in the export sector. And I operate in the financial sector. Overall, I operate in about 5 sectors of the Nigerian economy, employing people, paying taxes, leveraging capital market capital, as well as traditional financial institution, that is your bank's capital as well. So you cannot rule out. And all of these things have been accessed and leveraged without political leverage whatsoever. As a matter of fact, there are certain access to finances you will not have if you are politically exposed. So if you are a PEP, you call it politically exposed person. Because what that means is that it exposes you to a whole lot of risks that private capital is unwilling to associate with nor undertake if you are a politically exposed person. So I'm not a contractor. I'm a service provider. I create value through products and services that contributes to the country's economy and that open up homes by the provision of jobs and opportunities to people. Because we have suppliers, apart from we providing employment across roles, across functions, across industries, across sectors. So we do all of that. So I always laugh most of the times when people attribute some of my policy commentaries to political patronage, because it makes me laugh while trying and attempting to open people's eyes to the vast opportunities that Nigeria represents, and so that people can equip themselves for the marketplace. Some people just turn it into a political political smear, as you may have it, and say, oh, it's because this person. So I always try to tell people that you can always check things out, check me out, check a whole lot of things. So we have credit rating, just like a country is rated, publicly quoted companies are rated, that enables them to be able to raise capital, to pursue capital projects, capital undertaking, or as well as working capital, such as you may have it. So for me, I encourage more of our youths to open themselves to learning, to stewardship, apprenticeship, and as well as, yes, that's stewardship. The opportunities are huge. The harvest is much, but the laborers are very few. Many people feel that by reason of just being graduates, they are well suited and they are qualified for the vast opportunities that the market offers, that the market represents. So there are a lot of skill sets people need to develop and acquire in order to be able to take advantage of this. There are jobs. There are a lot of jobs. It's just that many people are fixated on government. They are looking for political appointments. They are looking for their ministers, their honorable members, their senators to fix them, to put them here. And I tell them, the time you dissipate in pursuing all of these people to give you or to fix you somewhere, you could actually spend it in interning somewhere, in apprenticeship somewhere, and acquire the necessary skills that will make you valuable to the market in diverse ways. Unfortunately, many people are limited and they are narrow-minded and they wouldn't listen. It's unfortunate.
That is true. That is true. Thank you so much for that. So in Nigeria, most young people, not just young people, even older people, once they try to do one business or the other and they have setback, once, twice, they feel there is village man somewhere who is spiritually attacking them, and we start spiritualizing everything about such setbacks and all of that. I understand, having built the amount of businesses, successful businesses you've built, you must have encountered a lot of challenges, setbacks, and all of that. So, what would you tell someone, those who are still trying to start or those who are currently struggling in their business, about failure and how to be able to come out of it?
Failure is a consequence of attempt. You cannot fail if you did not attempt. You cannot fail if you did not make effort. And the fear of failure that surcharges the Nigerian society is actually one of the relics of bad religious indoctrination and as well as poor cultural indoctrination as well. And that is why a lot of people fear failure. Oh, because people have been told grace will make things easy, name it, claim it. So people do not want any opposition. People do not want to face any obstacles. People do not want to face any loss. People do not want any interruption to that perfect world that has been created by adulterated indoctrination of religion, particularly adulteration of the message of grace. Name it, claim it. Small work, big reward. Sow it, sow this.
Unmerited favor.
Unmerited favor. Sow one, get 100 folds. I mean, these are mentalities of gamblers, mentalities of those who consult mediums and what have you. For anybody who is actually going to fulfill the conditions or who is going to pass through the rites that leads to successes in any endeavor must be willing to face setbacks, disappointments, failures, losses, heartbreaks, betrayals, distrust, scam, and what have you. And you must be willing to learn very fast. Learn from the experiences of others so that you can minimize your instances of failure. There are failures that are as a result of processes, learning. As you fail, you learn forward, you make more progress, you learn, you get exposed to newer insights, newer knowledge, newer understanding. And there are failures that are as a result of stupidity, foolishness, greed, and ignorance. So you must be able to undertake the hard task of critical self-assessment at any point in time. If you cannot do that, then you must have honest acquaintances or mentors who can look you in the face and tell you can give you the brutal verdict about the stage you are in your journey, your efforts, in your climb in the ladder of life, or your pursuit of whatsoever endeavors. So failure, most of the times, is the consequence of missing it, missing timing, or applying wrong effort. But you made effort, you made attempt. You either made it wrongly, or at the wrong time, or ignorantly, or prematurely, or with the wrong person. And then it led to a failure. So you are meant to assess, recalibrate, and launch out again. But one of the things you must never do, never lie to yourself. If you've not yet developed certain capacities, be honest to yourself. It could even be capacity of integrity or credibility. Be honest with yourselves. There are many people who became dubious inadvertently, not because they set out intently to be dubious, but because they did not have the capacity for what they pursued and what was committed into their hands. Then they misappropriated it, the opportunities, the resources, in some cases, outrightly, because they didn't yet have the character. They stole things and they abused trust and privileges. So, failure is part and parcel of efforts and attempts. And oftentimes than not, the more efforts you make, the more attempts you make, the more instances of failure. And failures are not final. Failures in certain instances are actually building blocks that eventually leads to the success. The building block. Okay, I now understand this thing better. I've added to my layer of knowledge. I now have better foresight as a result of these antecedents, which I learned from. And you should not just have experience, because experience does not equate expertise. You could experience a phase, a thing, without learning from it. And so it may not equip you with knowledge. So experience does not equate expertise or capability or competence. The same way participation does not equate contribution. Somebody can be with you and may not learn anything from you. I may not contribute anything to you. They are two different things. So, and people must be willing to learn. They must be willing to go through the process. They must be willing to give themselves time to grow. There's a time for cultivation. There's a time for planting. There's a time for germination. There's a time for growth. And there's a different time for fruiting. And people must not confuse the time for fruiting with the time of germination and growth. You must grow and must mature before you fruit. People expect to start fruiting instantly. You can't fruit instantly. People want to be, accomplish, or have the accomplishment of a 40, 45, 50-year-old while they are still in their 20s or their 30s. So they become frustrated. They start measuring themselves unrealistically with certain levels of performance of people who have paid their dues by going through processes. So you must germinate. You must move from one stage, one level to the other. And you must be able to measure pursuit in terms of timing. There are pursuits that are similar to cash crops, like cocoa, like cashew. They take longer time to germinate, mature, and start fruiting. 4 years, 3 years. And there are crops that take 3 months. But those crops that take 3 months are not as valuable as cocoa, cashew, palm oil. They take longer time for them to grow, mature, and fruit. But once they mature and fruit, they fruit every year without you replanting them again. But those other ones like maize, sorghum, you have to plant them every year. So you must be able to make distinction and distinguish where you are in every journey. There are opportunities in Nigeria. Many opportunities for young people. More young people are making money today than young people were making 10 years ago.
That is true.
Than they were making 20 years ago. There are more opportunities, legitimate opportunities for young people today than there was for young people 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But there are more distractions confronting, facing young people today than they were facing young people 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So they had more focus. They had more discipline. They could subject themselves more to a mentor, to a leader, to a master that will train them. They do not come on social media every week where they are changing their mentors, they are changing their masters, they are reading something new that is distracting them from the path where they are already growing and germinating. Woke ideologies that prevents them from building the character that gives them the staying power required for them to build, germinate, grow, and fruit. So many young people today never reach the stage of maturation for them to grow. So the moment they start germinating, or they just cultivate and plant, and they start germinating, they confuse it for fruit. So they uproot, they move somewhere else, and then they start the process of planting again because they are impatient about the fruiting. Because they've not seen the fruit, they believe nothing is happening. So this is where many of them require guidance, because there are a lot of misleading culture out there today. More young people are more rebellious today.
Very, very.
So that rebellious attitude makes it impossible for them to be humble enough to serve, to learn, and be teachable. And it's only when you are teachable you can acquire knowledge. And you need a meek heart for you to learn, not a sharp mind. So you need a meek mind, a meek heart for you to be humble enough, because you require meekness and humility for you to be able to learn. Not rote learning where you cram things in the class for the purpose of just passing exam, because that's one of the things I've spoken about in the past as well, that our culture of rote learning has actually taken away critical thinking and robbed people from the developing critical skills of analytical deductions. So people just mindlessly assimilate, cram large volume of information that they are unable to distill and process into meaningful thought processes that can lead them to action. Because at the end of the day, education is action. You cannot just be knowledgeable, cramming Avogadro's law, Charles' law, Boyle's law, but you do not understand the real life application. And that is why we are also theoretically religious and practically uh, deficient spiritually. It's the same thing. So we cram scriptures that we do not know how to give practical expressions. Because if you are talking about diligence, if you are talking about understanding your purpose, the Bible addresses that in Ecclesiastes, in the book of Proverbs. Whatsoever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Say, do it with, people do not understand, with all your might. And the other one, seest thou a man who is diligent. And the Bible did not tell you should go and pray on the mountain for your purpose, for you to know your life assignment. It is whilst doing that which your hand has found to do wholeheartedly, naturally, as a consequence of the growth and evolution, you will know the next thing for you to do. But if you do not do it diligently and wholeheartedly, you're actually not going to know the next thing to do. I just aspired to be an entrepreneur, started with fintech, graduated into manufacturing. We are going into retail. We're going into healthcare. We're in export. So maturation at each stage will evolve and lead to diversification. So I did not say, oh, I'm going to be a mining entrepreneur. I'm going to be a manufacturing entrepreneur. And it's the same thing with Dangote. So as it completes each stage, solidifies its status in each stage, attains a level of market maturity or sectoral maturity or solidification, it moves into the next. So it's not that he goes to go and look into a crystal ball. Oh, Allah, show me what next to do. The market, by reason of his position and his own capabilities, will dictate where he's going to grow through. So let me just end here for now.
All right, sir. Now, from your answer, I just want you to please quickly give advice to someone who is, a small business startup on structuring, because I've come to understand that structuring is one of the things most Nigerian young entrepreneurs do not know how to do. We just start up a business on our own, we do it anyhow we want, spend the money anyhow we want, run it as if it's our personal thing without knowing that it's a business. So on structuring, how can someone properly structure a business that can easily scale up in the future?
Well, the opportunities are always there. As a young person who is wise at heart, you always confer on people with institutional capacities.
So just sorry to cut you short. The structuring I mean is, for example, I've seen a lot of people who they started a business. They are running it with their private bank account, no company's bank account. Some others, they even have bank accounts, but then they spend money from this company account whenever they want. They can just buy whatever they want from it. All those little transfers, just those little structural details that go into a business. And when someone like an investor comes in, looks at it, they will see that it's actually well structured for an investment.
Well, I mean, the resources and the tools to putting in place administrative, operational, management, financial structures are easily accessible and readily available, even online. However, one of the most important factor of business structuring is actually having an accountability partner. apart from understanding that, okay, you need to open a bank account, you need to file your taxes, your VAT, your WHT, understanding the regulatory and the compliance terrain, having the lawyer who is also knowledgeable, who understands your industry or your sector, who can actually pull a bit of leverage, professional leverage here and there to ensure that there is compliance and adherence with whatever it is you are doing. Now, a lot of startup entrepreneurs in Nigeria are fundraising hunters, and expectedly so. They are constantly looking for money. But one of the things they should have at the back of their mind is that cheap capital is not as readily available in Nigeria as you have it in Silicon Valley. Many of them usually have their heads up in the sky, particularly in the ideation stage, and always go about with very unrealistic valuation of their ideas. In some cases, some even attribute galactic valuation to their startups when they do not even have an MVP or what you call a minimum viable product. They don't even have a sketch. They just believe that their ideas is the next best thing after agege bread and is going to transform and change the world. And it's usually like that. And I always tell people that ideas or generating ideas for startup or for business is almost like having sex, or it's even almost like climaxing in sex. You're excited, and then you release a whole lot of sperm. And if such sperm is actually released into a fertile woman, fertilization takes place, and it's only one out of the millions of sperm that gets fertilized. So your mind, the human mind, constantly generates ideas. And if you get carried away in the euphoria of the idea, this thing will change the world, rather than allowing it go through the gestation period like a normal pregnancy, you what you call you will cut off many of the ideas as they are streaming up in your mind because they lead nowhere. For you to start developing an idea into a business, you need to give it at least or subject it to the passage of time of at least 6 months. Of at least 6 months. If it can withstand the delays, the frustrations, the depressions, the boredom that comes with an idea, and it can still stand. And throughout those process or those timeline, it is evolving, it is getting stronger in your mind. Then it can move to the next stage of execution and implementation. So all the euphoria, all the excesses, all the wildness, excitement, the adrenaline that comes with a new idea for any human being would have waned. And you would have been able to prune all the excesses. And you would have had a refined version, minimum viable version that you can then now testing and developing. And it would have created a refinement in you and also led to a level of maturity that comes with being able, that is required for you to build and nurture that idea into a structured business. You need guidance. It may not be a formal mentor, but you will need a great deal of guidance. And you will need accountability partner so that you do not start stealing from your company. Because that's what many people do. And be guided. If you're a Nigerian startup entrepreneur, know that there are no frivolous, cheap, excess angel or VC funds. and we do not have patient capital in high supply. So you must be able to come up with refined ideas that will start generating revenue within the shortest possible time. And that's why it seems as though the fintech space is crowded, because they are ideas with very short gestation period. When you start, you either start processing transaction payments, or you start lending out, or you start managing people's funds, and you start charging fees immediately. So you start making money. But if it's a social idea, lifestyle idea, some of this other stuff that require a great deal of gestation period, where you have to acquire users and may even be required to go for years before you start generating, or before you even define your revenue model. How many investors will put in their capital for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years for you to simply be spending it on salaries or be funding your extravagant lifestyle? And you have a lot of young people, and it's because they've never had a background. Many of the startup promoters today, they've never worked in any organization. They do not understand structure. They do not understand administration, business administration. They do not understand many of these things. What's the motivation for many of them is the excitement of their innovation and the reward, the windfall that comes with exit, either an IPO or acquisition, and which will usher in the big payday. And in reality, the big payday does not come until after 10 years, 7 years, in some cases, 12 years. And people must understand that it's only about 2 to 3% of every 100 startups that succeeds. The figures, I believe, are even lower in Nigeria. So people must be more realistic and contextualize their ideas. If it's the Nigerian market they are serving, if it's the African market they are serving, they should be fluid, they should be adaptable, they should be dynamic, they should understand that they are not building services and products for citizens or users who are based out in California, Delaware, New York, New Jersey, Texas, and what have you. They are building services and products for users and consumers, businesses that are operating here in Nigeria. So they should capture and put into consideration the socio-cultural, socio-political, socio-economic nuances of the market and the environment in which they are operating. Otherwise, many of them will just be chasing or embarking on a full goals chase, as the saying goes. So, and they will just become one crazy nerd at the end of the day. So they should be very, very wary if they want to emulate certain ideas, certain innovation. They must have what it takes to reimagine it and adapt it to these realities so that they will succeed. You have the examples of fintech startups who are doing well, who are thriving. I was the founder of one. And you have to adapt your solution to these realities. Otherwise, you're actually going nowhere. And that's why you see the most successful fintechs, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, adapt their solutions to these realities and these dynamics of the market. They do not have their head in the cloud saying, no, we are building for the American market or the Asian market. So they have more sophisticated consumers and users because they are already attuned. They've been attuned to technology for decades. For us, we still have a whole lot of uptake
Mm.
in terms of people who are just there. We are just having new adopters of some of these technologies. We have some people who are just opening bank accounts and what have you. So they must be able to tinge whatsoever it is they are doing with reality, have accountability partners, have mentor who can guide them. The mentorship relationship must not be formal. You might just be somebody who reads regularly from a particular person who is currently in a role that you aspire to be, or who functions in a role that aligns with some of the things you are doing. So you learn from some of the things they share freely.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've watched up to this point, we are about to get to the most interesting part of this session. And the next question I want to ask is about politics. So, what exactly do you think is the root cause of, Nigeria's tribalism, religious extremism, and ethnic-based voting, where someone from the southeast will insist that he must vote for this particular candidate because he's Igbo, or another from the north will say because he's a Muslim, and the northerner he is the best. The southwest, the same thing, just because this person is their own person and not because the person is competent. So, what exactly do you think is the root cause of these things, especially tribalism?
They are all classic manifestations of human nature.
Mm.
It is not peculiar to Nigeria, but it does not make it an ideal that should be acceptable. I've said it. The factors that have largely contributed to all of this is the degradation, corruption, and erosion of our value system. Africans are notable and noted for being very hospitable, accommodating, and welcoming. And that is a reality, historically and culturally. Unfortunately, we have allowed ourselves to be willing tools in the pawn game of dishonorable individuals who have had the opportunity to stand to represent the people as politicians and as clergies. And I'll attribute all of these realities, this saddening state of the situation of things as it relates to religious extremism, religious intolerance, ethnic intolerance, tribal aggressions, to these two roles and these two institutions, religious institutions and the political class, have contributed to it. The political class, out of desperation for power, many have resorted to populist incitement and messaging wrapped around religiosity and ethnicity, inciting and inflaming passions. And the easiest way to inflame anybody in the world is through the instruments of religion and ethnicity, because these are sentimental factors through which the human mind can easily be swayed, persuaded, and reached. And you have people over time use the mosque, use the church to preach hate, echoing the agenda of politicians, when in reality, the people do not actually hate themselves, because hate, as a state of mind that finds expressions in manners, attitude, behaviors, is something that is taught and is not something that is naturally assimilated. It is taught All human beings were born as loving creatures. You see kids, they are playful, they love strangers, they smile at them, they warm up to them. Unfortunately, through parental indoctrination, may I add that the family unit too has also failed and has contributed to this decadence, corruption, and erosion of these values and ideals in our society and the school system. These four institutions, if they can start retracing their steps, sit down, retrace, recalibrate, repurpose themselves, or go back to the pristine purposes for which they were instituted, and start reorientating our people through the kind of messages, through the kind of communication, through the kind of interaction we are having, the realities will change. The seeds of distrust were sown by these institutions: political class, religious institutions, schools, and the family unit. Hatred, religious intolerance, tribalism starts from the home, through the kind of communications parents have with their children. When they start communicating negative stereotypes, people from this region are like this. And they are usually negative stereotypes. The children grow up interacting the world, their societies, and the communities of these people based on those negative stereotypes, which has already fueled and instituted a suspicious psyche against every other community of people. And which naturally, once you're suspicious, you become adversarial, you become combative, you become hostile. Anybody you are suspicious of, you naturally become hostile and intolerant towards them. It's a natural human reaction to that kind of psyche. So the church, the religious institutions, the political class, the family, and the schools must all come alive to their primary and fundamental responsibilities, imbuing our people with the right set of values, ideals, consciousness, love for humanity, love for community, love for country. And once they start doing that, because these are the recruitment center for every other aspect in society. It is those the schools produce for us. It is those the mosque and the churches produce for us. It is those the families produce for us that find their ways into political offices. They are the ones that get appointments. They are the ones that employ people. They are the ones that serve in our police, immigration, prison service, DSS, EFCC, civil service, hospitals, healthcare workers. It is those produced. So the values imbued in them, the consciousness imbued in these people at the family level, at the school level, and at the religious institutions level, they are the ones that ultimately produce those who recruit to serve us in society. And let us get this very clear. You are a product of all these institutions I've named. Religious, academic, and family. All what you believe that forms who you are as a person today are all a product of these institutions. So even the political class recruits from the families, the school, and the religious institutions. At the end of the day, they give you a certificate that declares that you've been proved worthy in learning and in character. From your families, your parents tells you, remember the child of who you are. The religious institutions tell you to love your neighbor as yourself. Offer water to your neighbor. Better is the neighbor that is close to you than the family that is far away. The messaging and the values, ideals, cultures that these people communicate and imbue in their members are what train individuals for society. And they are the ones that produce and represent the production centers for the political class. The political class cannot appoint. The civil service class cannot recruit anybody greater than the quality of what the family, education, and the religious institutions have produced for them. They can only recruit from that pool of people. So I laugh when people complain about our politicians. And I said, they're a classic, perfect reflection of society. If you think you are going to get otherwise, then these three institutions must change the product they are producing for this class to recruit from. These people do not drop from the moon. Do not forget that. These three institutions are the ones that produce for society to recruit politicians, civil service, private sector, everybody. They produce. And you cannot hire any quality or get any quality greater, better, higher, superior to the qualities that these institutions have provided and produced for society. Anything other than that, you will just be beating a dead horse and you'll be frustrated to death. Once people get and understand this reality, life becomes easier and people begin to tackle the problems from the source. And not be addressing the consequences or the symptoms. Once they're able to do that, society will get better. Those who God has laid it in their heart to take the bull by the horn will start tackling it from these institutions. I rest my case.
That is very, very correct. Very, very correct. I mean, we were born innocent. Nobody was born with any knowledge and all of that. Everything we know today, just like you rightly said, are things we've learned from family, school, and the rest of the very important institutions that contribute to who we become to the society. So you've been very vocal about the Southeast on some of your content on Facebook. So I want to ask.
I have not, though.
Yeah, you've not.
Maybe people attribute my general vocality on other subject matters to that of Southeast. However, I welcome your question.
Okay. I think it's because of some of the agitations and all of that is mostly from the Southeast. But that is not my question. My question with the Southeast is, do you think that the Igbos have, been marginalized or are being marginalized politically, economically, or do you think it's just a mindset issue?
I will start my statement by stating that the three major ethnicities in Nigeria are the most troublesome. That's Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo.
Mm.
They are the most troublesome. And the cries or wailings of marginalization whatsoever usually come or emanate from these three major tribes.
Mm.
And I can tell you authoritatively, there is none of these three major tribes that is marginalized economically, politically, and socially in Nigeria today. Politics is a game of numbers, and politics is a game which, if played properly, will earn the person or the participant or the gamers the trophy that they are gunning for. I usually say it. No Igbo man is a governor in the southwest, and no Hausa man is a governor in the southeast, and no Igbo man is a governor in the north. All the House of Representatives, State House of Assembly, State House of Representatives, and the senators from each region are the ethnic and religious representatives of those people. So wherein lies the marginalization? You go to the civil service, sports, business, land, real estate. There are no facts to validate the marginalization of any of the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria. There are no facts anywhere to back such narrative or such claims. You have ample representation as employees, as political appointees, and as elected representatives of the people across the country. No other tribe is as substituted or as displaced the indigenous people of each of these regions to represent them. If you chorus a line for a long time, you start believing it without recourse to evidence or facts. So I'm speaking to it directly. There is none of the three. If anything, it will be those that are politically or ethnically described as minorities that are marginalized. But of the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria, none is a victim of institutional, real, or perceived marginalization in Nigeria. The country waged the civil war, and I don't know of any other country where there was civil war and the seceding region became or produced the vice president within 10 years after the war. I don't think there's any country in the world. So left to me, Nigerians of goodwill, and I'm not saying Yorubas of goodwill, Igbos of goodwill, Ebira of goodwill, Hausa of goodwills, Fulanis of goodwill. Nigerians of goodwills should ensure not to make themselves pawns in the game of politicized ethnicity. none of the three major ethnic groups, for emphasis, is institutionally, economically, politically marginalized in Nigeria. None. There are no facts to that claim nor narrative whatsoever.
Thank you.
Anybody from the stock of this ethnicity can aspire to be anything in this country as long as you can play the political game. Politics is a game of persuasion, convincing, mobilization. You cannot be sowing the seeds of division and be expecting solidarity and support. It's a game. I can't be abusing you and then still be counting on your support. You can't be telling me I'm stupid. For instance, you cannot legitimately, for instance, tell me that I'm stingy. Then in trying to prove to you that I'm not stingy, then I'll give you. I won't give you. So you cannot tell me I'm stupid or I'm an idiot, abuse me, and then you want my support. So in order to prove that I'm not, I'll give you. I won't give you. So it's a game. It has not been documented or established anywhere that an aspirant from any ethnicity in Nigeria whatsoever aspired to the any position in this country and was not given form, was not sold to them, or they were disqualified on the basis of their ethnic or religious affiliation. None. We do not even have such institutional discrimination in Nigeria. By and large, we may have pockets, small pockets of it. But from the state level, we have House of Reps, we have senators, we have governors, and of each state, of each region, of each legislative constituencies that I know, 98% of the representatives of those constituencies, those states, those regions are indigent, ethnic indigents of those regions. So if they are having poor representation, it is
their own people.
Their own people, either religious or ethnic. And I must state this here, that the governors in Nigeria are the biggest purveyors of underdevelopment. It must be stated. They are the biggest purveyors of underdevelopment. If they remove their chokehold on the local government system and allow governance to truly be closer to the people, 98% of Nigerians live, 95% of Nigerians live in the states. I believe the remaining 5% live in the Federal Capital Territory, which are under the administrative purview of the federal government. The remaining Nigerians live in the states. They've further divided into local governments who are elected, because we are supposed to have elected representative from the grassroots level. So if developments are going to trickle down truly to the grassroots, the state governors should remove their chokehold on the local government. They are an arm of government. Our constitution states that security shall be the responsibility of government. When people read it, security shall be the responsibility of federal government. State is a government. We have 3 tiers of government and 3 arms of government. They're all government. You see, sometimes you see legislators come on the TV, come to complain, sometimes trying to incite the people, and they are active elected legislators who are part of the government. And you then wonder, the judiciary is government. The legislature is government. The executive is government. 3 arms of government, 3 tiers of government. But, and we'll continue to pay for it. Our over-obsession in who becomes the president will continue to make the majority of Nigerians pay for poor governance and underdevelopment, which happens mostly at the local government and the state level. If people are going to be leaped or pulled out of poverty, it will happen from and at the state and local government levels. The state governments have to be creative. They have to enact policies that are pro-development, that elevate the Human Development Index, that elevate literacy. For instance, I've stated it several times, you don't just enact a policy of free education. You must enforce it. So it must be compulsory. There must be consequences for not enrolling children in the school. And you must also provide incentives like feeding, learning materials, competent and capable teachers. How are these things hard for the governors to do? Build schools, build classrooms, provide instructional materials. They are cheap. Train teachers. If you give them good teachers, they will train them. Provide 1 meal per day for them as incentive. If you've provided those incentives, you will be justified in providing the punitive measures to enforce and force parents to send their wards to school. And once you elevate people's literacy, it is very, very easier to bring them out of poverty because they become more teachable, and you can equip them with the necessary skills that will make them economically relevant and useful. Governance requires more will than rocket science. You must be willing to force people against their will for their own benefit. Step on toes for their own benefits. And we should stop seeing it as a place to pursue personal enrichment. The private sector is the place to make money, to build value, provide solutions, create products, and you sell. And because it requires more of thinking, tax your brain, for you to make money, for you to collect money from customers. Unlike government, state government, many of them do not have incentives to be enterprising because every month, regardless of the effort which they put into it, there is a share they are going to get from the federal government.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, I want to talk about activists in Nigeria. Nigeria is a country with a whole lot of activists, those claiming to be fighting for the poor and all of that. So my question is, do you honestly believe that these activists, people like Very Dark Man and the rest of them, are truly freedom fighters, or they're just opportunists?
Yeah, when you look at their track record and the interventions they've actually made on behalf of ordinary, hapless citizens, you cannot but give them their crown and their laurels or their trophy as being activists. Very Dark Man is an activist. Showore is an activist. We have a number of them. And, as with everything human, they have their own foibles, they have their own shortcomings, they have areas in which they actually fumble, fail, and where they also allow their emotions or their ignorance as well to get a better part of them. But you cannot take away their efforts. You cannot take away their right, effective good interventions in areas where law enforcement has actually failed the people, in areas where even the criminal justice administration has actually failed the people. So they serve as a moral conscience where they call out. But in some instances, some of them have actually been overreaching. Some of them have actually also violated the rights of others. But that does not take away the good works some of them represent, they are doing, and they will still do. Of course, you cannot rule out an agenda setting in some of the things some of them do. And I'm not attributing it to any personality right here on this show, but you cannot rule it out. Just as we have false prophets, just as we have bad politicians who exploit people, the ignorance of people, just as we have Ponzi operators who come in as legitimate entrepreneurs or investors. We also have activists, just as we have clerics who exploit the ignorance of the people. We also have unscrupulous activists who actually exploit the ignorance of people. But you cannot but give thumbs up to people who have actually stood for the common man, for helpless citizens, people whose rights have been violated, people who have been exploited. And kudos to that man, kudos to Shore, kudos to Brekete.
Yeah, Brekete.
Yes. And you have a number of them that once named lawyers, barristers, a number of them who do thankless jobs in obscurity and without the publicity, who take out illegally, who advocate for illegally detained, prosecuted people and all of that. And there are very many like that who do it personally as a form of CSR. So we have a number of people who actually present themselves as activists, just like you have some people who present themselves as prophets, as pastors, as evangelists, for the sole aim of setting other agendas different from advocating for the rights of helpless citizens or masses.
Quickly, there are just two more questions and
Yes.
it's a wrap. So the next question is about the Nigerian youth. These guys that go about on social media begging people for money for food. You see an adult, oftentimes some of them are even graduate. They come to your inbox, I'm dying of hunger, I've not eaten since this, and they are not disabled, fully fit. So do you think there is any genuine reason why an adult fully fit should go about begging people for food instead of looking for what to do to at least be able to afford food?
Apart from health and disability, there is no justification for a healthy adult to go about begging for food or for money to feed, except if it is a temporary measure where the person falls on unexpected economically hard times as a result of a loss of job or change in policy that led to that. And it should be a temporary measure on the part of the individual who is soliciting for help, or you understand, who is soliciting for help. And it should also be a temporary measure on the part of the person who is intervening. You should not do it for more than once or twice, having established the reason or the basis for which the person found themselves in that condition. But if it becomes a lifestyle that exceeds a particular timeline, you are also indulging and enabling criminality, lack of productivity, indolence, and the word for it does not readily come to mind now, but it's bad. Under no circumstance should the lifestyle of a healthy, able-bodied adult who is not retarded, who is not sick, terminally sick, bedridden, who is physically mobile, to be begging is very wrong. It should not be encouraged. It should not be indulged. It should be condemned, and it should be discouraged in the strongest terms. There are many companies looking for interns. There are many places of work looking for apprentices. Is it apprentice or apprentice?
Apprentice
Looking
is
to
fine.
come and learn and add value. They should go and do that. I'm willing to give them stipend to feed. So it's very wrong. And it's very wrong for men who are jobless to go and marry women who have jobs and become a burden to them. And it's only a stupid woman who would do that on the premise of, oh, he has potential, no one knows tomorrow. Regardless of how small the income is, a man must be earning money and must be consistent about it and must be willing to invest in themselves to grow on that job and to grow in other areas to improve their economic chances and marketability as they go on. I condemn and I do not give to able-bodied people except they fall on hard times which created unexpectedly difficult financial situations for them that was out of their control, which health reasons could be it, loss of jobs as a result of downsizing or right sizing. So other than that, and I discourage it and I condemn it.
Thank you. And this is the last question, sir.
All right.
So, as a military veteran, do you support police brutality and police or military brutality? And why do some believe or downplay the NSAS movement and the so-called Lekki massacre?
Well, if you want me to be very plain and objective with you, I was one of those who identified with the citizens. I'm a former military person myself, and while I served in the military, there are a number of civil military interventions which we did. I was one of the first responder teams, for instance, to the Ikeja bomb blast that happened almost over 2 decades ago at Ikeja in Lagos. I was also on a TV to lend my voice to the NSAS movement, particularly with regards to demanding for the reforms and overhaul of the SARS unit, making it more humane, eschewing violence, abuse of power, exacting violence, physical violence on hapless citizens, and violating their fundamental human rights and what have you. However, I was against the protest also violating the rights of others, going beyond their own exercise of their own rights. And as for me, I haven't served in the military and haven't fired live ammunition and haven't been part of battle simulations and operations. A massacre did not occur at Lekki. There are no evidences to support such claims. We are human beings who are rational, who can think, who can connect dots, who rely on evidence, facts, to arrive at logical, intelligent conclusions. So there are no evidences to support such a claim. And I'll stand on the side of the facts, the circumstances, and more intelligent people who were part of the investigation that led to that conclusion. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the episode. Hopefully, we are going to have him again. I sincerely believe that we're going to have him again on this platform. And we want to take our time to appreciate you. We wanted to keep you for just 1 hour. We ended up keeping you for 3 hours or plus.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We appreciate your comment. Please watch this video, ensure you share it, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you. I love you.